teacher at Carrio Middle School, and I am going to let her tell you a little bit more about herself. But today we're talking about writing standards aligned goals. So we'll share with you some best practices. And after the webinar today, we will have a one-pager that we'll send out with the information and additional resources. So Jennifer, I'm going to stop talking now and turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I am excited to be here today to talk about writing academic goals appropriately. Ironically, or coincidentally, I guess would be the better word, I just left a meeting at our elementary school across the way, talking about how to help the teachers write goals kind of aligned to how we write them here and making sure that they're using the appropriate tools. So I currently am a teacher at a middle school in Charleston County, and am excited to be here. I learned most of what I know about writing goals from Dr. Thomas, who is also on this call. All right. So did you share that with me so I can show it?
I did. I made you a host.
Okay. How to do this. I'm gonna add that person. Share. It's all coming back now.
I love technology when it works, when
I do too.
everything.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
There we
Here
go.
we are.
You got it.
I knew it would happen. It's just going to take a minute. Okay. So that's me. Okay. So did you want me to review some of the things about the purpose of the Academic Alliance of South Carolina, or do you think you got this?
We will quickly go over this.
Okay.
Just to remember that our mission is really to disseminate evidence-based practices and to really have teachers share things that really work in classrooms that's based on evidence. We've got a lot of things out there, and we'll share some of that with you at the end. And so I will let you go on and to the next slide. We do have a team of 4 people. Dr. Mitchell at USC is our senior advisor. Deanna Parrish, who started, is our program director. Jenny Saunders, this is her first evidence-based practice meeting, is our program coordinator, and I'm the lead facilitative coach for to work with schools and districts. So we'll let you take it away.
Okay. Well, what I loved about the vision and mission as well, though, is about the building capacity. Because as I said, where I just left the elementary school, like they were just thrilled to kind of learn more and make sure we're speaking the same language, because ultimately it helps us build our relationships with parents and also help kids grow. So, okay. So diving right in. So we have a fabulous team. I call that one the beautiful people, but I like how you just said your team. That was better. So for IEP goals and IDA and goals, the reason we have to have it, obviously, we have to be able to prove that we are showing growth for our students in the areas that they have academic and functional needs. Today, of course, we're just going to be talking about academics. I believe that there are further or future sessions on like those functional skills and independent skills. So the big gist of it and what we're charged with is ensuring that these students are not just growing, but they're growing in the general curriculum. So long gone are the days of they're just learning a new skill. It has to be as close to possible as their general ed peers. And so to do that, we've got to do a lot of things. We have to find the areas of their needs and then write the goals that are definitely measurable and easily is the part I want to go with, easily able to gather the data to support that when speaking with our parents. I wish, and as soon as Dr. Thomas sent this to me, the strategies for setting high quality academic IEP goals I wrote down very quickly. I just wish I had this when I started teaching in 1942 when Columbus was sailing the ocean blue. But I didn't have this because this would have made my life a lot easier. But of course, back then we had things like IEP banks or IEP goal banks, which was just something we're not going to talk about anymore. So you have access to this, or you will have access to this. This is it's not a very long read, but it is chock full of information on ways to set high goals and write them appropriately to show growth so that students can show growth. Oh, this was new. Okay, so we adding things in on me. So the IEP tip sheet, is that the one pager one that you're
That's the
talking about?
one that's the one that we were talking about yesterday we were talking about how much you loved it. So I put it in
Yes.
here.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So this is a great little doodad that shows you basically, it's a one-pager overview of everything you need to know in order to get the data to write your goal, establish a baseline, and come up with a reasonable rate of increase and growth so that our IEPs are they are compliant, but also they meet the needs of the children. Did you want me to go ahead and show that completely?
That's okay. We have it in the folder. And also, Jennifer, it's interesting. Dr. Yell, who is a national legal expert in special education right here in our state, was telling us the other day that both of these documents come from our technical assistance centers, our national technical assistance centers for special education. And so they have to meet a legal review. They have to go through a vetting process. And so he was telling us these were both good documents to have. And I always feel good when he's kind of put his seal of approval on things.
Right. Wonderful. And I literally, again, I have mine right here. I'm sitting with it. I have it right next to me. And it was a great, just kind of real quick, stick that on your bulletin board if you're a teacher who's having to write these goals, and just have it right at your fingertips at any time would be a great idea. Okay, those general outcome measures. So these are the things that we need to do. These are all the skills that will be taught in that grade level. So long gone again are these days where we are going to do just this focus on these little tiny goals. Those are sometimes still necessary for students with that are working on a particular skill, and we might need to task analyze it down to objectives. But if we're just writing an annual goal for an academic area, typically we would want something that's going to be a general outcome, again, commensurate with their peers, with that same gen ed curriculum in mind, and also that it's going to give the whole, we're going to be talking about or thinking ahead to what are they going to grow in that entire year. So I think curriculum based, there is another tool here. There's a whole tool chart for you to go to when you get to this PowerPoint, and it takes you to all the different ones. One that you will hear me discussing in today's session is FastBridge, and that's basically because my district has us use that. And so that is what I'm going to refer to because I can very quickly put my fingers on data to use as examples for you. But those general outcome measures are going to be very important to be able to show how are they growing compared to all their other peers. And so then going from there, because of that, curriculum-based measures are the bomb.com to use. What just happened there?
I'm going to put you back in just a minute. We're having some technical difficulties, and I apologize. We had several people in the waiting room, but give me just a minute.
Sure.
Thought I could do that without doing that. I hate technical difficulties.
I recognize April sitting there. This is funny. I'm like seeing people I know.
All right. Won't let me give it back to you, Jennifer.
Do I maybe need to do something?
Well. Oh, right here. I gotcha. I'm sorry. We've got to figure this out. There you go. Go for it, girl. Sorry.
Okay, I'm back.
You're back.
Back in charge. All right.
Back in charge. And we apologize. We are not sure what happened there.
There we go. Okay, so back to the slide. So again, this is so curriculum-based measurements are going to be your go-to and going to make your life so much easier if you are again the classroom teacher who needs to write these goals, because they typically are like one-stop shopping. They are they're easy to administer. They provide you with copious amounts of data. They're sensitive to student changes and growth, whether they continue to grow or if there's a dip, you can kind of stop and pause and see what's going on before just plugging along, and lets you intervene sooner rather than later because they are so sensitive to change. So step one, though, would be to just determine the measurable target behavior based on the standards. So of course, if we're talking academics, we're looking at reading, math, and written expression or written language. Of course, a big one is just the reading fluency. That's one still in the middle school. We actually talking to those 5th grade teachers today. They're coming up to us in 6th grade, still very much in need of those oral reading fluency goals. I have a lot of kids as they are now midway through 7th grade. We're focusing more on the comprehension, story retell, and items like that. So you have to choose what is that biggest area of concern, what is blocking them from accessing that general curriculum along with their peers. For some, it could just literally be that fluency part, that decoding. And so you would want to write a goal on that. Again, I have many that it's the comprehension. They can read it enough, or they have become savvy enough with accommodations of audio, but they still really struggle on the comprehension. So I have a lot of students that use the comp efficiency progress monitoring within FastBridge in order to check on their progress. Also, just one thing that we'll need to keep in mind when talking to parents, of course, is sometimes they think that that is all that we are going to be teaching them. And it's not. That's just going to be the focus on the goal that we need to see the most growth in. Of course, we're still teaching all the other things that surround that. So when they're in class, they're still going to get some decoding. They're still going to get some comprehension, all the other parts of the reading or writing or math, depending on that area.
So Jennifer, can I
Yes.
stop you right there a minute and just ask you a question? So you're still teaching a lot of reading skills and collecting diagnostic data on that whole reading, because reading we know is so interwoven if we're thinking about that. Same thing with math if we're doing fluency and concepts. So it's not just that this is all the data you're collecting, right? You're collecting diagnostic data to help you know what to teach. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. So, and again, we were just talking to the elementary folks. So, and again, so we do, of course, the oral reading fluency. We do the comp efficiency. Those are the progress monitoring tools that we use, on a regular basis with the kids. But in addition, we also kind of need to make sure they're kind of up in that ante and that rigor of this. For me, again, I'm going to talk a lot about 7th grade standards. And so I do a lot of co-teaching, and the ELA co-teachers and I, we also will assign like an article or a passage from ReadWorks, which also looks at just the inference skills, drawing conclusions, author's purpose, and getting that information there. So we have a variety of data points and information on the reading skills. But again, the IEP goals are, again, aligned to what is the biggest hurdle that is holding them back from, and why are they having trouble progressing, and why do they require the specialized instruction in a specific area.
So then you've got great data. That's great, because then you've got great information for present levels for strengths and weaknesses. In addition to this data. That's perfect. I love hearing that.
Yes, it makes the writing a IEP, I can down to being able to write them so quickly, because you have so much data. It's almost like you got to start taking some stuff out because it's almost overwhelming how much. And again, using some of the data from like the comp efficiency or from one of your programs that you're using for progress monitoring and screening, oftentimes there are these beautiful little graphs. I'm a big proponent of showing the graph because, again, we're talking to parents, some that, they're not in, most of them are not in the educational world. So to be able to show that arrow going up or that line going up or the dots or the colors really make it easier for them to understand without kind of making them feel like they don't know what's going on with their child.
Jennifer, we have a question in the chat real quick while you're still on the slide.
Okay.
The question is, based on this slide, for written language, what would be an appropriate skill to focus on for grades higher than 6th grade? So thinking of how you've talked about the diagnostic data, what kind of skills would you focus on since you are in 7th grade?
Okay, and again, it's almost like these people were at my last meeting. So we did talk a lot about writing. And so for those kiddos, if they're still not able to, because again, even kids above, 6th grade, 7th grade still struggle to just even stream up the words to get a good, just solid sentence. And so for those kiddos, I would still continue to use correct word sequences, because that's, again, it's a quick and easy one. They can do them without feeling overwhelmed by, because I was getting a lot of goals for writing paragraphs and writing these essays. If you try to have them do that all the time, they're literally going to just throw things at you when they get to the upper grades. So just the correct writing sequences would be a great one for them. Once they do get a little bit beyond that, what we are starting to use are just very set and solid rubrics. Those are for the kids that now we are just they've already mastered a paragraph, but there's still weaknesses. And so then we just actually handed it to the 5th grade teacher. So they're going to get that data in order to write it for the 6th grade students that are coming up. But it is very, obviously detailed and drilled down. And we got that from, I believe, from the SC Ready test is the rubric that we were talking about using. That's for the kids that are a little bit higher. But again, I would stick with the correct writing sequences for those that are still struggling with basic paragraph formation and sentence formation.
And there are some great guidelines for using all of these measures. And of course, if you're using FastBridge doesn't have a writing measure yet, but there are some other tools out there for writing, but also guidelines to go along with them. And I know that most of the companies give a lot of those guidelines, especially about when you have maybe older students who are still working on some of those skills. And so there is some guidance. National Center for Intensive Instruction certainly has a lot. And we've got some information in there for you on that.
Yes, links to that. Very good. For resource. Thank you. Was that it for that question?
Yeah.
All right. And so here's just a sample student. We like to show those. So again, this particular 6th grade student has accurate decoding skills, but lacks adequate rate and expression. And in addition, the student has difficulty comprehending text. So again, for the standard, we're looking at application of reading. And then some measures that we would use, again, would be that curriculum-based measurement for me, again, it would be for comprehension, would be the comp efficiency, and also still that oral reading fluency or passage fluency. So those would just, again, and the kids get so used to coming in, they know how to get online, they know how to do those for the ones like the comp efficiency is online. And then when it's time to read to me, they know what to do. They know they're going to be timed. And so it works very easily to get lots of information without overwhelming them and making them hate coming in to have to do that. Oops, sorry. Sorry if anyone just got like dizzy on that one. Okay. All right, so once we've found our target area, like what are we going to work on? What is that area within reading, writing, or math that we're going to focus on? We have to establish a baseline. So there are several ways to do this. You could use the score from a universal screener, and this would be most likely for the students who are slightly below grade level. Again, a lot of my students only receive co-taught services, and so they are pretty commiserate with their peers, or getting there, starting to look at dismissal for some of them. And so that is enough information to establish a baseline. You could also administer 3 progress monitoring probes and take the median score, or administer 3 progress monitoring probes and use the average score as that baseline. And again, that 3 is key, because I'm sure anyone who's worked with any of these probes, you get them to do 1 week and they're at 86 words per minute if it's the oral reading fluency, and then the next week they're at 112. I guarantee they did not increase or learn it that quickly. It's just the variation within the probes, even within a well-respected program. So again, and you would definitely want to include that baseline data in your present levels, and it would describe the student score compared to their same age peers. That's why I really like those screeners. It tells the parents a quick percentile. So, you know, your little Susie is, oh, look at that, you Susie. Susan, it's not about you. So that is currently only at the 30th percentile, reading this many words. However, you know, we try to, again, get closer to that 50th percentile, if not higher, but to show the difference between them and another 7th grade student or whatever grade level you're dealing with. And again, that also proves why they require this, specially designed instruction, and why that they have an IEP and why they're getting these services. Because again, if they were doing just as great as the others, then they probably wouldn't need the services anymore. Is somebody else checking the chat? Because I'm not doing that while I'm doing this as well.
We are. We're keeping an eye on it.
You're amazing. Thank you. I just wanted to show another example of a norm chart. I'm going to see if I hope you guys can see that well enough. I thought this one was great because this one, again, comes from what I'm using on a daily basis. So it has, and they update them every year. So this is for the CBM again. And again, so I've got a student in the 7th grade, and then the next column right over, I show what that would be for 8th grade. And that's going to, I use that often when constructing a goal. We'll get a little bit more into that in a couple more slides. But what I love about this for present levels, again, I talked about my friend reading 130 words because we're in January right now, so we're in the winter. And so we would look at 130 words per minute, and that child is currently at the 10th percentile for 7th graders for oral reading fluency. And so that, again, because of parent, you just say your kid's reading 130 words per minute. That sounds like a lot, you know, for some parents. And then showing again, but a kid at the 50th percentile would be reading 185 words. That's that kind of, oh, okay, now I'm starting to get it. And understanding that we need to continue to work on this area and to catch them up and get them more fluent.
And, you know, Jennifer, a lot of times we have people that talk about oral reading fluency, and we don't have time to go into all this today, but this might be a great evidence-based practice follow-up about why that's a good measure and what the research has said about that being a measure that supports reading growth overall, and its correlation to comprehension. So the great points you're making. And of course, there are a lot of reasons why we can use this, and it's a good measure.
Yes. All right, now we're going to choose a strategy for setting that goal. And this, again, is going to be in that one pager. That is wonderful. That kind of gives you, I love the short version of everything. So you could use that benchmark for the end of the middle of the school year. Younger grades or close to grade level is where you would use that. You can consider an off grade level benchmark for students significantly below grade level. We do still have, in my school, we have kiddos like that. And I believe, you know, I totally agree with this. They will usually give you those kind of, each company that has the program that you're using would provide guidance on that. Again, those benchmarks were kind of also, those are also provided and kind of can give you just an overall snapshot of how that child is doing in comparison to others. Rated improvement. This would, you're going to identify that rate of improvement for the grade level and the tool. Again, most of these will give it to you right away. This one pager that you will be receiving kind of tells you that by grade, what is typical growth by the week. And then you're going to multiply that number by the number of weeks of instruction that you're going to have for that annual goal. And then add the product to the baseline score. So if they're already at 10 and you have figured out that they're going to increase by 1 a week for 36 weeks, you just have to figure out the math. And then the last way to do that would be the intra-individual framework. And you're going to use this for those kiddos that need intensive support. So you're going to collect 6 to 9 data points and calculate the student's slope, and then add that to the baseline data. That's a little bit more mathy, but all that information is also provided in the guidance document. And it is not really as intimidating as it sounds.
And I think it's important right here, Jennifer, and when we were kind of planning for this and talking, we talked about how, because we have IEPs that go over school years, and sometimes kids are going from one grade level to the next grade level on their probes, because they do advance. If you have that happen and you need to go to a new grade level probe, you would have to amend and to collect that baseline data again to start if you see that they're ready to move into that next level probe. And so that's just something to think about. And of course, it's nice that we can amend IEPs pretty easily and goals pretty easily. And who doesn't want to see that they're advancing like that?
Yeah, those are the best phone calls to make to a parent. And typically, and I, of course, I always say, we can have a meeting if you want to do that. However, the LEA's here, I'm here. If you're in agreement, we can make this change, just by quickly amending the IEP, because it's just updating the goal. They're like, oh, heck yes, because they're thrilled because the child has already met their goal and they're ready for an increase. I'm going to go backwards for a minute because that is another one of the reasons why I kind of put this side by side here, because I write IEPs. I'll be writing some of them now for my 7th graders, but the annual, of course, is not going to be again till January of their 8th grade year. And so you can trying to go across 2 grade levels. So I write them at a 7th grade level in hopes that they increase, of course. And then my 8th grade counterpart is often in the fall, like by October, amending the IEP to change it to the 8th grade level. And again, just meeting with those 5th grade teachers, we asked them before the transition meetings, they're actually going to gather data of these kiddos on the 6th grade level so that we're good to go to get started with them and kind of keeping that goal the whole year until their annual. So what makes a measurable goal? There's a lot of components in it. We've got to have the condition and the context, which would include the condition, that behavior, and then which should be something that we can actually observe and count, and then the level of proficiency over time, and then any additional suggestions to ensure any sort of compliance. You have to have those areas, and then it can include the materials you're going to use, the grade level, setting, timing, accuracy, number of trials. You should definitely write the baseline in the goal and include a specific ending date. And there's some examples here and on the next slide. For example, for that condition, you would say, when given 30 nonsense words, when given a 3rd grade passage, things like that. And then for the level of proficiency over time, you're going to be looking at 3 consecutive probes, by spring benchmarking, et cetera. There's more than one way to do this. Typically, you're going to find one that works for you as long as it meets all the criteria. You should be good. And of course, that ending date, like by May of 2024. So here's a couple samples to review, and please chime in any questions. I think there's more questions rolling in, or comments at least. Given a 7th grade passage, that would be the condition, Graham will improve skills in reading, that's the outcome, by increasing his fluency, that's the target behavior, from 100 words per minute to 140 words per minute. That's going to be your level of proficiency, and by May 30th, 2024, and that's going to be your timeline. I wonder who Graham is. And then another one would be given 4 7th grade passages, Graham will improve reading skills by increasing reading comprehension skills by answering 10 comprehension questions with 90% accuracy by May 2024. And again, I just kind of threw out another one just because we were talking about that, the oral read and fluency data I just had for you. So I just actually pulled one from mine. So by September 2024, given a 7th grade level passage, the student will improve their reading fluency by increasing their oral reading from 123 words per minute. And then I like to include the percentile that's in. You don't need to, that's just something I do again to remind the parents. 10th percentile to 139 words per minute, which would get them to the 20th percentile as measured by curriculum-based measurement data. So again, find a way that is, as long as it's compliant and has all those components, you should be good to go on your goals. But a goal is a goal, but you got to do something with it, or it's really not worth having. It looks real pretty in that document, but you have to actually measure your goal and make sure that you are making progress towards that goal, or do you need to drop back and do something different? So again, you have to develop your plan for how you're going to progress monitor the various goals that your child has. How often are you going to do that? And of course, the need would determine the frequency. Typically, again, using the IEP programs that we have here, which currently is Enrich, it'll say that you're going to report them so often, but also how often are you going to progress monitor? Is it something that you need to check on weekly? Are you going to do it bi-weekly? Are typically the top two that I see. And then you have to determine how you will report the progress to parents. Again, we have to make that choice in our IEP, and dictating it is usually anytime that the gen ed students are getting some sort of feedback from the school, we will also do that. And also decide how often, how you're going to do, that would be how often, I apologize. And then how you're going to do that, of course, is with the IEP progress reports. And again, don't forget to include all of that in your IEP. I am also a big fan of having the students chart their own growth on their goals, or at least be observing their goals in those growth charts, because so many things are on the computer now that they can access those. So I have a couple examples of those on the next slides I'd like to share. So this is one for the graphing progress. So again, this is a CBM reading. This is from, again, FastBridge. And you can see it has, this would be great to show parents. This would be great to show the kiddo, because again, this child is making progress. So that's a good one to show. It's when they stop. You know, there was a couple little hesitancies in here. But again, that one line you see at the beginning was actually an intervention line. So other things were done to ensure that we would continue to grow. And so this is one in showing the kids. Now there are students out there that really don't care. But a lot of my kiddos, we just finished taking the MAP test again, and they get so excited about meeting their goal and setting their goal. And of course, you know, the candy that I give when they do is also a bonus.
And then, Jennifer, that also goes in with those skills that we want students to have for college and career, which is setting personal goals.
Yep.
And so this is a great way to embed those skills that we are supposed to be teaching to get them college and career ready in that profile of South Carolina graduate. So I love this idea that you have your students looking at this and watching it and monitoring it. It's great.
And I'm glad you said that too, because also when having meetings with parents, and of course I am, you know, I'm that 7th grade teacher, so I'm the one who gets them all like at the time that they're going to turn 13. And so of course now they're in their meetings, they're part of the meeting, and half of them are like, what's an IEP? So I'm having to go through all that, but then they're actually showing their parents and explaining to their parents, because I'll have the graph in the present levels, and then the parents are like, oh, okay, because they're not used to seeing this, but the kids are. And so I actually will have the kids start explaining to their parents what this means. And so that means I'm getting closer to my goal, or I met my goal, and that's why she's going to have another one. And so it is exciting for the ones that have that buy-in. I did want to be an equal opportunity. Not everyone teaches middle school. So just another one that you could have for some other kiddos. And this is one if you wanted them to color or just put the dot, again, showing the fluency progress. Again, not everything has to be done by the computer, although it seems that way these days. I happen to like paper.
Jennifer,
Ma'am?
any other closing thoughts about goal setting?
I just really think it gets easier. So like if you're a newer person, you know, because I just, you know, I've had a couple new teachers over the last few years in our department, and they get a little bit overwhelmed by writing goals. But typically, you know, just sit with somebody that is experienced or has the knowledge of how to do that, and then find your kind of niche. And again, ensuring that you are meeting all those criteria, and you'll get your wording and you'll kind of get that. And then you're just adding in the data. And if you are using curriculum-based measurements, the data is there. It's so easily at your fingertips to add into the goal, to add into your IEP, and again, it's beyond just having this data to look at and be pretty, but you're making very informed decisions for your kids, because, you know, if we have to increase services, it has to happen sometimes, but you want to be sure you're not just doing it based on one piece of data or one bad day or one great day. So any of these changes we make, we want to have as much data as possible. But writing those good goals and following up with gathering the data about it, it's going to make your life so easier to deal with the parents, because they're going to feel confident that you know what you're doing, and then the kids are thrilled. So I think that would be it, writing those goals, but it does get easier with time. So if you are newer to this, again, just getting some good examples, using these resources that will be provided to you today to help you do your job better.
So Jennifer, I loved everything you've said, and just to kind of, tie it up, I think about those general outcome measures, and you've heard me say this before. I think of it about weight loss, because, I compared the whole world to trying to lose weight, my lifelong endeavor. And, we step on the scales, and that's our outcome measure a lot of time, but there are other measures that we're taking. Maybe what we're eating, how much we're exercising, that we're recording. If anybody's ever done Weight Watchers, they know that you record those things. And so that's exactly what we kind of talked about. This is our goal for progress monitoring on the outcomes, but we're also collecting that data on how kids are doing on those specific skills. This pulls it all together. And so I think it's a great way to think about it. And certainly, we can defend these types of goals, and it's just easy. I love the graphs, and people can see it. Kids can see where they're going, and so can parents, and so can teachers. And sometimes it's hard to see that growth, but when you do this, you really can. I know it changed my life as a teacher when I started using it. And to show you how old I am, there were no computers. We were using graph paper. So, so just to let you know how far we've come is great. We did have one question about correct writing word sequence. There are guidelines in some of the commercial programs about correct writing sequence. There's also been some research done, and we'll try to locate that and share that back out. I haven't looked at that recently, but most of the writing programs do look at that, and they do have norms if they have a general outcome measure for writing. And there's been some work I know done at Vanderbilt on that. So Jennifer, I'm going to let you drive these next couple of slides, but we do have another evidence-based practice coming up with our own director, Dr. Deanna Parrish, on February 21st. And this is going to be looking more at students with extensive support needs. And that would be those students that we do have to have that goal in those short-term objectives. And so she's going to go in more detail about that and talk about how we can do that. We have several more events coming up, and we have that information on our website.
Susan, before you go on, we did have one final question in the chat regarding writing.
Okay.
And the question is, how do you compare same grade peers when using a writing rubric?
A writing rubric.
Well, I think Jennifer mentioned the rubric system they were using.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it gets a little bit harder with that again, and that's the rubric we don't use with a lot of our kiddos. It's the ones that are kind of working their way out, because once they can do all the different skills and, string together those good sentences, that's not going to be one of their major deficit areas. However, I'm very, very, very fortunate where I am. In my ELA co-taught classes, I give those, the writing probes to all of the students in the class. And so then the gen ed teacher and myself score them. So that way we can have that data to show how it would be versus a kid with a disability and one without. I have the same luxury in math when I go to do some of these, the general outcome screeners, and we give them to all of the students, and it really helps the co-teacher. And I know I've kind of gone past the question. I tend to do that, so you have to rein me back in. So we use that information to are they still having difficulty multiplying decimals or dividing fractions? We will put those into the bell ringer / warm-ups at the beginning of class to make sure they're getting those. I'm going to circle back to the writing question. So again, it's just that's how I get it. I have great teachers that will also do it with all the students. And so we have that data.
And I think if you're talking about rubrics, I mean, those are more curriculum-based assessment tools.
Yes.
They're not general outcome measures. And so you're measuring them against a curriculum that's been set, the expectation for that curriculum, which is a little bit different. I would use both.
Mhm.
You know, a general outcome measure like correct word sequencing.
Yep.
I would use that and the rubric, because then you can look at several different things to really report not just progress, but also present levels of performance. And if this slide, if you look here, this is where you can get the information. We will also send out the link to those of you who attended today. If you registered, we'll send out the link to this folder. We have a lot of materials in there, including this presentation. And we also have some of our evidence-based practices that we have shared earlier. We have some one-page documents that have resources on them. And so you can take a look at all of those. And then Jennifer, if you'll scroll down,
Yes, ma'am.
we have one more slide. Thank you for driving.
Sure.
If you
No
would
one ever
like-
says that to me.
If you would like to receive a certificate for attending this, if you will complete this, and then you should have an auto-generated response with a certificate with this information for today on there. If you have any problems, you can always contact Academic Alliance and we'll be glad to help you. This is our newsletter. It comes out monthly. We have updates on things that we're doing, but we also share a lot of evidence-based practices, or if we find a website that we think has some great materials on it that you can use as a teacher, or if you're an instructional coach, whatever your role is, we'll share those in our newsletter. And so you can sign up for that to receive it monthly. And so if you would like to get that, we will be glad to put you on our list. And then finally,
Well, then
well,
I'd have to
that's
go
okay.
back. No, I can get back.
And finally, if
Maybe.
you need to contact us, certainly an easy one to remember. Well, these are our social media. I was thinking it was our contact page.
There you go.
We are on social media, Academic Alliance. And
Mhm.
then if you need to contact us, this is our contact information. Certainly Academic Alliance SC@gmail.com is an easy one to remember. And we will be glad to send you things if we have them, or we can give you some places that you can go and look if we can help you. So thank you for joining us today. Jennifer, last words.
Just go forth and use the data, because let your data do the talking instead of you. I'm sure people think that about me all the time. But use the tools that your district provides for you, and use the data to do what's right for students.
Well, I am going to, I'm going to just thank you. I'm trying to get control back. You know, I want control.
Yes, yes. I want you to have
need
it.
control. But Jennifer, thank you so much. Do we have any final questions that anybody would like to ask? Deanna, do you see anything else in the chat?
I do not. Just a lot of thanks, Jennifer, for sharing information today. And we will get that information out to everyone for the one pager and the additional resources.
All right. Thank you for everybody for being here today. And I can't get control back. So I hate that. All right. So thanks for joining us.
Do you want me to do anything? Do you want me to end?
Yeah, can you flip that back over to me? It's not giving me an option.
Participants. Maybe. Is this